Welcome to the Lytes Out podcast. This is Chris Lytes Out Lytle, and this is our journey to document the history of mixed martial arts. I have brought with me my friend, the MMA detective Mike Davis, and together we will preserve the history and hear some great stories from the world in the era of the no-holds-barred. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Lytes Out podcast. We've got actually two special guests this episode. I am the MMA detective Mike Davis. Along with me, William Colosimo. William has got an incredible history project that he's working on. We'll get into that later. But we've also got early Lions Den member Noah Schnable. Noah, thank you for joining us.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're going to get into the Lions Den stuff, obviously, as well as your fight career. But why don't we start with plugs? Noah, is there anything that you'd like to give recognition to?
Lamb Heating and Air, Phantom Produce Nursery, and the Glass Guru of Lodi.
That's right. You're in Lodi, California. It's still there. William,
Yeah.
Would you give a brief description of what it is that you've got working on?
Yeah, real quick, I'm doing an interview book, 2 volumes. It really covers the history of the Fujiwara Gumi organization, which leads into Pancrase, history of early Pancrase. Those are the 2 major topics. And then it delves off, there's a lot of cross coverage. So it delves off into a lot of early Lions Den and a lot of early UFC as 2 more side issues that always pop up.
So you've got 2 guys mentally ill with history, and we've got an early Lions Den guy here. Essentially,
diagnosis.
That's what we have here. So Noah, why don't we start with yourself? Early beginnings, entry into mixed martial arts. How did you get there?
I got into it by one of my friends at the time, and still saw me get into a fight, and he asked me if I wanted to do it for money. I was like, sure. I was 17, 18 years old, and he said, all right, he's going to set it up. So he set it up. That was a Friday night. And then Monday evening, he took me down to this little place in Lodi at the square. Walk up, it just has like a bunch of cubicles set up. And at the end of the cubicle was this big old white gorilla looking guy, which was introduced to me as Ken Shamrock. He's sitting there eating a little baked potato. And my buddy Daniel introduced me to him. And he asked me if I wanted to fight. I said, well, I'd like to check it out. And he goes, all right, well, here we initiate, which basically means you fight. I want 110%. And if you think you're down or you can do something, we'll go from there. So he's told me to go around the cubicle, warm up, stretch out, whatever I got to do. And at that time, it was just me, the only person there, basically. Daniel had left. And so I stretched out, warmed up.
Was Daniel offered this opportunity as well?
Yes.
He
Not at
said
that
no.
same exact time. It must have been before.
Okay. That's fair. Okay, go. You're warming up, stretching. This is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And as soon as I got around the other side of the cubicle, all it was just like a mat that had ropes around it, like a ring, and a carpet area, some little workout stretching machine in the far back. So I stretched out, warmed up, and he tells me, hey, you ready? I said, yeah, hey, just 100%, right? Go do what I can. He said, yeah. And I looked around. I was like, well, who am I going to fight? He goes, you're going to fight me. I just kind of laughed, smiled, put my head down. And I was like, wow. He goes, so you're going to quit? Shook my head, looked up at him and said, no. And he just smiled at me. I'm like, oh, crap. And basically proceeded to get my ass handed to me for 45 minutes.
All right. How much did you weigh at this point?
150.
And Ken Shamrock's north of 200.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
Was there anybody there videotaping it? Anybody in attendance?
Not at that moment. But towards the end, after putting me in chokes and kneeing me, punching me, knocking me around the ring, he handed me my ass. I was down in one of the corners. He had me kind of pretzeled up, stomping me with his fist and elbow. and he tells me stop. And I'm like looking up at him because I really wasn't doing nothing, just getting, pummeled on right then. And so I'm on the ground looking up at him, and he's looking to the side of me. So I looked up, and there's an older gentleman with glasses on. He goes, "Hey, Pops, what's the time?" And he's like, shakes his head. He goes, 45. And he looks down at me. He goes, "Hey, we're done." He helps me up. And I'm like, holy crap. So I just feel beat up. And he goes, "Hey, you see all these guys?" I look over, and there's a bunch of guys in there now. I'm like, wow, I didn't see none of these guys walk in. And he goes, "Hey, you see all these guys right here?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "None of these guys lasted more than 5 minutes with me." And I was like, okay. He goes, "No, you have the heart of a lion. You just went 45 minutes with me. You belong here. Just don't waste my time. Don't no call, no show. I will come and hand you your ass again." And I was like, holy crap. All right. And he goes, "Well, what we do here also is we do 500s. And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" He's like, "You do 500 push-ups, 500 sit-ups, 500 leg lifts, and 500 squats after you go jog 2 miles to warm up your body. And you need to do that right now. I don't care how long it takes you, because we're going to be here for a few hours, and we'll go from there." So that's what I proceeded to do. And then get done, go home. And the next morning I'm stuck in the fetal position. I can't walk, can't do nothing. Had to roll myself out of bed, crawl on my hands and knees to the bathroom, throw myself in the bathtub, try and pull my pants down and go to the bathroom. It sucked. I was sitting there crying. And I called Ken and said, "Hey, I'm broke. I can't move." And he starts laughing. I'm like, "No, it's not funny, And I'm pretty much crying. He's like, no. Where do you live at?" And I told him where I lived. I believe he sent I think it was Pete and Frank to come and pick me up. And they came and picked me up, got me clothes, carried me out, put me in the car, took me back down to the gym. And I don't know, the guys were kind of just laughing at me and stuff. And I didn't know what else to do because, it's all new to me. They put me on that little stretching machine in the back of the gym. And it took me about probably an hour just to get my legs to go straight and then to get them just spread apart. And he goes, "Hey, how do you feel?" I was like, "I feel broke." He goes, "All right, do those 500s." I was just like,
Oh my
I was
God.
like, I can barely walk. He goes, "I don't care about the squats, do baby ones or whatever, but you got to do the push-ups, the sit-ups, the leg lifts." And I was like, all right. So I sat there and fought it. And I mean, it took me the whole duration of time to get them done, but I did it. And I thank God that he made me do it again, because I would have been broke for months. I mean, it still took me about a month to actually be able to walk right, because my legs were just so exhausted that I don't know. Every time I take a step for just to try and walk or something for a while there, for the whole 3 weeks, man, it was like I take a step, boom, I eat it. No sense of balance, couldn't feel my legs, but that went away. And then I don't know, I kept on doing it, learning, rolling with guys, meeting guys.
William, is this you've interviewed a lot more Lions Den guys than I have. Is this something that, like, a reoccurring theme with the participants, the barrier to entry?
Well, the brutality, but interestingly enough, it seems like different guys had to do different things. Like, no, you doing 45 and then having to do the 500s times 4. Some guys seems like they did 30 minutes of getting whooped by Ken, and then that was their entry. So it sounds like yours was actually even worse. And we'll get into how the second time and how it was even doubly worse. But you know what I'm hitting at. But let me go before you met Ken. Were you in a lot of street fights prior to meeting Ken?
A few, not too many.
Nothing crazy. And did you have any kind of martial arts training before meeting Ken?
When I was a little kid, my mom mostly put me into like judo and karate, but I didn't really like the whole I guess their type of discipline and
wasn't a good mix. Yeah, it wasn't a good match. Okay.
Yeah.
How did you meet Daniel Zuñiga? The guy that you mentioned?
Yeah, through high school.
And you were living with him at the time, but you didn't realize he was part of the den when he was watching that street fight of yours?
Nope.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it's interesting, William. Like from my perspective, it's like you try out for the den, you go a second and third practice, and then all of a sudden, like you're really not allowed to have your life. Like this is, your entire universe is centered around. Is that kind of what happened with you, Noah?
Yep, pretty much.
Huh.
Straight up.
Let me go one more on Daniel. He was there, obviously. This is like summer of '93, real early version of the den. How long roughly do you think Daniel was there while you were there in the den? Like at least on Cherokee Ave, that first gym?
Yeah, the first gym on Cherokee Lane. That was about it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you hit the buried entry, you're in the lion's den. Mm-hmm. So it seems to me that, you're living with Daniel. Are you living with Daniel Zuñiga at this time?
I was for a little bit, and then I moved in with his aunt. That's where the guys actually came and picked me up when I did my initiation.
That sounds horrible. So now, it's just that initiation process is just absolutely brutal. So now you're initiated. When do you start kind of gelling with the other members? Do you start living with them, or what?
I didn't start living with them for a little while. Probably after maybe month and a half, 2 months. I guess when the guys came and picked me up at Daniel's aunt's house, I guess they had told Ken that it wasn't a good situation or something. And he told me, hey, I want you to come in, move in with the fighter house. And I was like, okay, where's it at? And what do you need me to do and stuff? And takes me to this, I don't think it was center court. It was behind the Twins Arbor there on Hutchins. But there's a apartment complex behind this other gym, Twin Arbors in Lodi, that Frank, Jason, and I guess Jen's Pulver just moved out. But I stayed there for duration.
All right, Jen's Pulver, you mentioned his name. I had heard that he went through the tryout and then got cut. Was he working out with the team as well?
I never seen him, but I know that's what they told me, is that he was there.
Okay. That's wild. William, is this one of those situations where Jens may have stayed there for the tryout in order to alleviate costs and then was just kind of there and gone?
I think Jens might have been at the Shamrock 2000 era is what we're talking. And I think, no, it
was before. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Fair enough. You talked about Jason Delucia and Frank Shamrock. Those were some of your early roommates. Am I correct?
Correct.
First off, we've interviewed both of those guys. We've interviewed Jason Delucia and Frank Shamrock, and the craziness of that era. First and foremost, we were kind of shocked at the things coming out of their mouth, just how brutally honest they were. How would you describe that living situation?
Living situation wasn't bad. It was a little different because I had my little spot was a cot in the living room. Jason had his own room, Frank had his own room. And then after a while, I asked him, hey, there's this, what is this little door right here? And it was a closet, but it's like, I don't know, probably 12 feet long, but it's only 40 inches wide. And I say, hey, that's as big as my cot. You think I could stay in there? That way I'd have my own little privacy little room. And he said, dude, you want to live in the closet? Go for it. So I lived in the closet for a little while. But I don't know, sometimes I'd wake up and Jason or somebody'd be up walking around the house. I used to have a Doberman back then too. And every once in a while I'd come and stay with me if it wasn't staying at Ken's house. And Jason wanted to wrestle it one night. And I was like, no, dude, you're gonna break my dog, man. But I don't know. I'd run from the apartment to the gym, which to me wasn't nothing. Down Kettleman to Cherokee, or down Kettleman to the second gym off of Frontage Road and what is that? Industrial Avenue, Suite F. But I guess that's like a weird place to run because there's no streets on that Frontage Road. And I told Jason the way I went, because one day he wasn't getting a ride or something, and he tried to do that. And he's like, dude, you're crazy. I would not run down that road. There's no sidewalks. There's no nothing. I was like, dude, it's just side of the road. You run on the shoulder. But I don't know, just a lot of training when we hit the gym. The home style living was pretty lax. Every once in a while we talk about different things, you know, the positions and key locks or workout or something, but nothing too out of the ordinary for me, I guess.
So the partying that both Frank and Jason talked about, did that start after you had left, or you weren't a part of that? Some of like the wild lifestyle?
They didn't really actually involve me in much of that. Every once in a while, smoke marijuana with Frank.
Yeah.
That was back then. And then but like a lot of the extracurricular activities, a lot of them didn't really, you know, involve me with, which was, I don't know why or what, but I don't know. I kind of actually I'm kind of glad that they held me at a different standard of just going and always just kicking it or something, I guess, you know.
Did you see early on, was Jason taking the reins on training Frank early on?
I know they worked out a lot here and there. Sometimes they'd go down to the dojo by themselves or with other people, a couple other guys, work on things.
How long had Frank been there prior to you joining?
Not long.
Okay, so you saw him gradually getting better then, because yeah, a lot of the guys like Scott Bessac had told us that Frank, he wasn't anywhere near as good in the beginning as he was obviously at the peak, which is world champion. Did you kind of see that transition as well?
Oh yeah, little by little, accelerate, learn how to move, work. I mean, shoot. I don't really know exactly what all Ken was able to show or teach Frank, but I know when they went to Japan and some of the guys came over from there, they learned a lot. You know, it was pretty cool.
No, early on when you joined, there really wasn't much going on fight-wise other than Pancrase. So
Correct.
Early on, you had Vernon, James Matthews, Scott, of course, Ken. They all went over. You didn't go over early on. Were you told why?
I just think I wasn't ready yet. I told Ken,
Okay.
you know, hey, you let me know when you want me to, you know, what you want me to do.
It was. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. No, I'll follow up.
I was going to say it was no weight limits. I'm wondering if that was something that maybe hindered or caused that decision. If you had guys in there that are 240 and such.
Probably.
Okay.
William, also with Jen's Pulver, and I know we got to kind of close that, move on. Jen's was a real small weight. And what I had heard was that based on like his size, they said, man, we got nothing here for you. But Noah's not much bigger than Jen's at this period.
No.
So there's a little inconsistency on that.
All right. Noah, when you were, from what you saw early on, who was the Lions Den member or members that Ken seemed like he was closest with?
Scott.
Bessac.
Yeah.
So in our interview with Scott Bessac, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to hear it. It is like a roller coaster of, oh my God. And he's not lying in it. Like there's nothing that he's trying to mislead or embellish. It's just the straight truth. So Tony Galindo, another guy that gave us a phenomenal Lions Den interview. Both of them have talked about moments where Ken just turned on them for some reason without them even understanding of where it came from. Maybe it was just in Ken's head. Did you ever experience that?
Personally, on some of those things, it was just, I don't know, like when I was growing up, you are like, you're supposed to be seen, not heard. If parents are doing something, you go outside. So something was weird. I don't know. I was taught really fast to move because I wasn't very big. And with all that workout and stuff, the regiments and stuff, I got really strong. And, certain things you just didn't do. So when I noticed body language, all right, something's up, I exited the situation.
Smart move.
Like, hey, I don't need like 2 or 3 big guys beating on me no more.
Smart move. That's really smart.
Oh yeah.
Noah, what was early on at those first 2 Lions Den gyms, Cherokee and then Industrial Way? What was your relationship like with Ken?
I think it was pretty casual, like teacher, student, mentor type situation. If we did, the guys that were there, which mostly was Frank and Jason there towards the end, and me, if we did our workouts throughout the week that were good, Ken would actually drop money and go buy us dinner every night, or not every night, but on Friday nights if we did good, which was pretty cool. I don't know, they were
talk more than just. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said they were amazed because we, nothing crazy dinners wise, but hit Burger King, and they had like the 89-cent Whoppers. I'd get 8 of them. And by the time we got from Cherokee Lane and Victor Road, the Burger King, to the apartment, I'd already have them gone. They're like, dude, how do you eat so much? I'm like, look at everything I have to put out all this energy. I'm like, it goes as fast as it comes in, so, but I don't know. That was like our little Friday things that we were good. On family occasions, birthdays and whatnot, usually we're at Ken's house for the kids and whatnot.
So it was more than just talking shop in the gym and training then a little bit.
Oh yeah. There was, it was, there's like a giant, big older brother kind of looking over me. So I never experienced some of the crazy stuff. I was either there before it or after it, like that instant. But some of the things I was not a part of, and I think it was meant to be like that. They didn't want me to know for whatever reason.
Well, so you didn't even catch wind of some of the stuff, like the psychedelics, going out?
Oh yeah.
I heard about women.
I heard about that, and I knew they're going out, and I was like, well, I'm not going, because you never know what's going to happen. I've been there, streets are different than, a business, corporation or something. You never know what's going to happen. And you can read the body language of like 4 or 5 people, but not like a whole room of everybody. And depending on what they're doing and where they're going, there's like, hey, we're going to go do this. Oh, that's cool. And I just didn't go. And it's not like they wanted me to go, like, hey, you got to come. It was never like that. And I think I thank the Lord for that. It's like, dude, nobody ever like pushed me to do stuff. Even when sparring and training and stuff, there was a push, but it's not like, oh, you have to do this, and it's like, let's go. But I seen how they treated other people. They didn't treat nobody like they did me. So I think it was like basically like a respect thing. They said, no, Noah's here to work. He's here to do his thing. Let's go. And shoot, I'd go through 3 or 4 guys sometimes, whether I was getting beat on or not, but I was still doing it. And a lot of the other guys only spar with 1 or 2 guys and like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, some guys weren't tired yet, and like, hey, you still want to go? They're like, holy crap. Yeah, let's go. So we go do some more stuff.
Okay. You started the conversation with Bob Shamrock.
Yeah.
How did you meet him? Like, what was your impression of him? Kind of let us know your thoughts.
The first initial meeting, I didn't know who he was because he's the guy that told Ken it was 45. And then afterwards, I met him. This is my dad, Bob Shamrock. Shoot, he seemed like a very well-rounded, down-to-earth, common sense type of guy. And shoot, he loved everybody. That guy had a huge heart. I had different meetings with him throughout the whole duration of my fighting experience, even without the Lions Den.
How much of a regular fixture was he at the den in those early days in the gym?
Off and on. When he had a group home, he'd also bring the young boys from the group home into there, kind of get out their, aggressions and try to learn some stuff or just get them out.
The group home boys, did you ever have a lot of interactions with them?
Sometimes I'd go over with Pete or Frank, even Scott. Just, hey, we gotta go to the group home or whatever, the boys' home. Just help out, do whatever.
So, like, I've heard people talk about Bob actually being very heavy-handed with the group home kids in order to get their respect. Did Bob strike you as somebody that could fight?
He was stern about certain things. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be able to fight. He's taking care of all these kids. Plus he's got, Ken's his son that I understood. I didn't really realize until later on that he was one of the group home boys from previous.
Noah, at the den, I was curious on the breakdown of class time for fighter training. So you're warming up doing all your 500s. You might be doing other conditioning, some technique training drills and sparring. What kind of percentage are we looking at of how much of your time is spent doing what in your average class for fighters there early on?
Should I probably say almost 3 hours? Because everybody, the young guys had to do the 500s, and we all try to do them together, make things a little bit easier, and then work on positions, techniques, and drills.
Did you ever see Ken teach? A couple of people have mentioned that they had to tap pretty quick because they had to figure out how to get out of the submissions. He didn't really teach them. Did you ever see Ken teaching a lot of actual submission defense to the class?
Not to the class. To me personally, told me how to move. Basically move my ass. You have to move, pivot, turn your hip. Shuck. He called it shucking out. I just know it as a movement now. And then he taught me how to knock people out open hand, which was pretty cool, and how to work certain heavy bags. Everybody's body's different. You utilize your space, your distance.
You had mentioned we had talked in the past about how Ken had shown you a couple of techniques here and there that he wasn't showing other people. Is that what you were just mentioning there?
Kind of, but I mean, a lot of the other guys, they already kind of did it, and I guess I wasn't clicking on certain things. And he said, "Hey, you got to go like this, got to do this." Well, that's what I did. I started working on it, and then I'd work those with Jason and Frank and Pete and Jerry and whoever else showed up at the time.
Vernon Tiger White was one of the original members of the Lions Den. How did you perceive him at this time, and what was your relationship like?
Kind of at the beginning, it's kind of like like the yes sir kind of guy. He definitely had legs he could kick, and I don't know, he perceived himself as knowledgeable, kind of intellectual on a lot of aspects in life. If somebody's talking about something, if they asked him, he'd give his opinion, which was kind of cool. But he was kind of like one of Ken's closer, acquaintances.
He was incredibly loyal to Ken. Like, out of all the Lions Den members, like even till today, he's loyal to Ken.
Oh yeah.
Was that obvious back then?
Oh yeah. Very much so.
No, I wanted to follow up on something I asked a little earlier when we were talking about Pancrase. Some of the guys went over early. You didn't. After a while, when you were going to the den, was your objective more about just going and pushing yourself physically and mentally, testing your own limits, or were you was your main goal trying to get a fight early on in these early days?
I wanted to get a fight. I wanted to, try and make some money and see what I actually had against other people that were doing the same thing. And it didn't look like I was going to be doing, no fights for a little while. After maybe a year and a half, 2 years or so is when I quit for a little while to go work, make some money.
You had mentioned the boys' home. Dave Cranning, what was and there's not a lot of known about him. What was your interactions like with him?
Shoot, I after Lions Den, moved to San Diego, I was out running around Lodi, trying to keep up my own cardio, and Pink Cadillac rolled by, and it ended up being Bob Shamrock. And he said, "Hey, Noah," and I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh my gosh, man, you still look good." I said, "Yeah, I still keep working out." He goes, "You doing 500s?" Like, "Yeah." He's like, "No way. Would you want to fight?" And I said, "I've been wanting to fight for a long time." And he's like, "Well, I have Shamrock 2000, which is at Animal House. So it's Animal House, home of Shamrock 2000. I want you to come in there." And that was owned by Dave Cranning, the Animal House. And so I had a lot of interaction with Dave. But I don't know,
you want to go over your initial? I'm sorry, go ahead.
His with first interaction with Dave, I guess he kind of thought like I was just some other Joe Blow off the street, I guess.
And then we'll skip over your second Lions Den initiation for now, but now moving up to Shamrock 2000, what was the initiation there?
There was a lot different. They wanted me to just kind of feel me out for a little while. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "No, I'm ready." And Dave's like, "Oh, we'll see. And so I sat there and I was going through the original, their guys. And they're like, "Well, come pretty soon here, we're gonna have an initiation." I was like, let's do it. Well, finally came to the point to go do it. And they wanted me to go run a mile in a certain period of time. I think I jogged it in 5 minutes. And then at that point, Dave was telling me, goes, no, I don't think you want to be, I don't want you to be a fighter. I think I'm going to put you in in the Olympics. He goes, you just jogged like not even a 5 minute mile. I was like, I don't want to be in the Olympics. And I had to do, 200 burpee push-ups, a bunch of squats, push-ups, leg lifts, and then go back to the gym and then fight 3 fresh guys. Kind of like a round robin, I guess. And so, all right, whatever. I kind of got lucky. They watched everything I did, and I did, I think, 150 burpee push-ups straight. And he's like, "We're good. We're going to go back to the gym now." So we went back to the gym, and I fought Jonah. He threw some punch and kick, and I caught him, took him to the ground, basically started pounding on him. That fight was done.
Do you have a last name on Jonah?
Ken Solving.
Okay.
And then So that was done within like a minute something. And they're like, okay, next. This guy Ryan got up in there, and he basically did the same move, just like southpaw instead of orthodox. And I caught him in the same thing, flipped him, took him to the ground, started pounding on him. And then the last guy ended up being Dave. And somewhere there's a picture of me just getting blasted. He ended up breaking my my nose again in my orbital socket, which I didn't know until, I don't know, 4 or 5 late fights later. I had to do an x-ray on my my face, and they found that my orbital socket had already been fractured. My nose has been broken a bunch of times, and I never knew it. I never knew my nose had been broken, but it had. But I went the whole, I think, 5 minutes with Dave. He's a big guy. I think I don't know if he really got tired or basically he felt that I'd passed his initiation. But yeah, I was there for the duration of last of my fights.
William, you've mentioned that Noah has had to go through the Lion's Den initiation twice. How does that happen? I mean, obviously, many are unaware of that.
Well, no, you were telling us you were at the apartment with Frank and Jason, and they moved, so you had to leave. So, and that led into your having to join again. So, why don't you tell us that story?
Yeah. Well, plus I trying to make some money, work. I also quit because of work, and that was, I told Ken, hey, I'm not making no money here. I'm gonna have to work and whatnot. And so that's what I did. And then when I came back, told him, hey, you guys, I still want to fight. He goes, well, you got to get initiated again. I think he wanted to see where my mind, where my heart was, if I really wanted to do it. And I got initiated by Jason, and we went rounds, and he caught me in a rear naked choke, picked me up, and I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm getting out of this. But it wasn't tight. So I played possum. I went limp, and he just let me go. I jumped up, started fighting again, kicking and punching, and boom, automatically went back to the ground. And we rolled around for a while, and then he got that choke again, and he wasn't letting go. And I kept moving because he didn't have it just right. Because I guess he's, guys with big necks, it's pretty easy to choke them out. I don't have a big neck. I mean, it's strong, I guess, but he was having a hard time, and he wasn't letting go. And I was like, oh, and that was it. Got up when I was done, and I was back in doing the 500s and working and training again.
So your initiation, was it starting before you fought Jason? Did you have to do your 500s first and then fight him?
On that one, yeah, I believe I did. I had to warm up.
And then you had to go probably like say 30 with Jason. There was like a certain time limit or other.
I don't know if there was a time limit. I mean, there might have been. That part I don't remember, but I do know we went for a long time.
At that point though, the advantage you've got compared to your first time around, the conditioning drills, you're real good at them. You've been training with Ken, so you know his style. Jason, his style. So would you say, I mean, it's going to be a brutal tryout, but compared to the one with Ken, did you have enough advantages coming in that this one seemed like it was more humane?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Did Ken ever give you a reason? Did you mention this? Why he wanted you to get reinitiated? He wanted to test your heart again. You were gone for a bit.
Well, that's what I felt. He never really gave me a real, explanation.
Okay. And then, so this is probably at this point, the den was on their second location at Industrial Way, I think, right?
Yes.
And then you eventually had left the den, or I should say maybe the den left, because was it like a 6.5 hour drive to San Diego? I'm not from California, from Lodi to there. And is that why you couldn't stay when Ken moved the den to San Diego? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically you were there at the full time at the first 2 locations, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was Robbie Kilpatrick there? Ken's brother?
No.
He was not.
Okay.
I have a
Not after
theory.
I seen.
Okay, I have a theory about, you mentioned Jerry Bohlander earlier, Jerry Bohlander and Frank's relationship. When Jerry fought, it was almost as if the people doing the color had to say trained by Frank Shamrock, managed by Ken, but trained by Frank Shamrock. It seemed like that there was a little bit of a tug of war with Jerry in regards to Ken and Frank. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, off and on.
And would you agree with my assessment, or what are your thoughts?
No, I'd agree with that.
Okay. What was your relationship like with Jerry Bohlander?
Pretty good. It wasn't Macy was kind of a similar situation with Jason and Frank and even Scott. We come here to work, and it was like a business relationship. We're here to train, we're here to work, let's do this. And everybody had their own little lives afterwards. So
You're muted, William.
I apologize. No, early on, you were at the den, you've seen a lot of students come and go. Were these all guys that passed the tryout, but after that, it was just the daily grind was too much? But they passed the tryout originally?
Some guys just wanted to learn, so they didn't do no initiations. Like they'd have a whole class of 4 or 5 guys from some other gym, wherever.
So fight team, there was a fight team, and then there was like a class that you could take.
Yeah.
From the time you got there was self-defense classes pretty much right away that were non-fighter related?
Correct. Okay. Those were on days at certain times.
Who taught all those?
I know Scott of them. I believe Vernon taught some. And then there was another guy who was doing something with some class. I can't remember.
All right. Do you remember at your time at the gym, we're not talking about initiations now, but people coming in and just like say, challenging den members or seeing what they got? Have you seen any kind of challenge matches like that in the gym while you were there?
Oh yeah. I've seen a few.
Any of note?
Well, Oleg Taktarov came down. That was a pretty interesting match. He fought for a while. It was a different situation for him. That is a big guy. And then
who did you see Oleg roll with?
I watched him roll with Ken and Scott.
Yeah, how did he do?
Okay. It seemed like he knew like Greco-Roman wrestling. So he went a little while with Scott. But like the kind of, I guess you call it ground and pound now. The brutal boom, you take him down, you start smashing whatever's there. He didn't have any like want to continue that part of it. I think the other guy was Guy Mezger. I watched Guy Mezger come in there.
Did you see the initiation with Guy Mezger and Frank
Vernon.
Shamrock? Oh, Vernon. It was Vernon White. Man, good call, William.
No, I think I came in right when it was over. So they did it early.
Do you remember hearing anything about it?
Just that he did okay. He needs to learn, which basically all of us still need to learn.
How often would you see Ken get caught in a submission in training from various students?
Very rarely. And if he did, he'd probably pick you up and slam you.
I think Pete had mentioned on your interview, Mike, that it was almost not worth catching him because you knew a beating was coming afterwards, like revenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've seen it basically a few times, but just not often.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Did you have any fights on Indian reservations prior to your first documented bout on the internet?
There was a few on Indian reservations. Because there's the one down in Calusa. There's a few of them down there. And then there's what's the Indian reservation up north here?
Let me rephrase the question for you. So, in essence, Gerald Strubent is your first documented bout. Do you have any fights prior to that?
Gerald was, I think, my 5th or 6th fight.
Okay.
And he was like 30 pounds heavier than me, I believe.
And that would have been like September 2001-ish.
Yes, September 2001, September 9th.
So you might have had, oh, go ahead, Mike.
You had several prior to that then?
Well, not several. I was 4 or 5, yeah. I think
About
he was
4 or
like
5?
Fight, yeah.
What about Steve Bruno, American top team coach? Do you remember him at the Lions Den?
I'd have to see his face.
Okay.
I see so many people come and go. It wasn't really worth trying to get to know and remember their names. I just, hey, he's back. Hey, he's back. Because nobody stuck around.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely brutal. What about Mike Chu, the manager? I think he cornered you as well.
Yep. I'm still good friends with him.
Okay, so did he manage a lot of the Lions Den guys?
I don't know about a lot, but I know there was a few of us that once Ken and Move that he helped manage them.
How did he get that position?
Just being himself. He's a straight up guy. I love that man. He's good people. Him and his wife and kids.
I mean, was he a business partner with Ken on anything and just kind of took a management role, or was it just a friend of Ken's that assumed it?
He's at the fights because he's had guys fighting, and he introduced himself to everybody. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I manage this guy, or whatever." And like, hey, well, you've got a guy, let me know. And then, he do like matchmaking and stuff like that.
Okay. So you're in Shamrock 2000, and we're wrapping up right now, William. If you've got anything else, you gotta let me know.
No, we're up to Shamrock 2000.
That's beyond your scope. I know. Like you're super focused on one era, but dude, you're a master at it. That's for sure. All right. So Shamrock 2000, there is a fighter, Valeri Ignatov, one of your teammates. Did you have much interaction with him? Like, how does he, a Bulgarian living in Russia, join Shamrock 2000?
I don't know. The only person I could think of that might be would be a guy that they used to call Bobber. But that name, I'd have to see his face.
Okay. Yeah, he was kind of a smaller guy as well. Master of Sambo, Russian military instructor, 5-time Russian Sambo champion, and he winds up on Shamrock 2000. And, I guess, Bob's tentacles, they reached in many different, areas. And that always interested me how he wound up over there. And your fight career. One of the guys that you fought, Josh Emmett, is actually still fighting in the UFC right now. You fought a number of veterans: Josh Emmett, Cole Escovedo, Danny Castillo. You've got quite a list of guys that you fought against. What is your most memorable fight?
There's a couple of them, George Adkins and Jory Tate. George
Okay.
Adkins choke, and it must not have been just right. He gave Herb Dean the thumbs up, saying like he was still okay, and I was like, what? So I made sure next time I was able to sink it in, and I choked him. And then the Jory Tate, that was like a 15-second straight choked out. First round, 15 seconds.
You also started your own team, the Noah's Pack Fight team. Where were you guys based out of?
That'd be out of Campo.
Okay. So in our interview with Scott Bessac, I mean, you had talked about you stayed away from everything. You were cool. You never got involved. He had mentioned a story about you crashing a car, and you actually were asked to leave the fight team, like the Lions Den. Is there any truth to that?
Not that I know of, man. I never crashed a car.
All right. He said he crashed a car while on meth, and you like hit a building or something like that.
No, that's one thing I've never done is meth.
Right? Okay. You know what? With Bessac, I don't doubt the information's good, but it's probably the wrong guy. He alluded that it was you, but I don't think he said your full name. So I just assumed it was you. So I appreciate you clearing that up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Noah, Lions Den, mixed martial art experience. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with?
It's a beautiful game, sport. Nowadays, try to stay out of the political part of it. It's insane.
Yeah, excellent. Noah, thanks so much, brother. William, we're going to do a little bit of wrap up right now. Noah, thank you for joining us. Scott Bessac cooked this up. William, you actually played a big part in that. So it's greatly appreciated with both of you guys. Noah, I appreciate you joining us, man. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
William, I think we had two intense lead questioners. Really get the out of it. I think, I think he was a little intimidated, a little bit maybe based on his answers, or he's kind of a quiet guy, which is what he had said kept him out of a lot of trouble in the Lions Den. But good stuff for you. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of craziness going on in the early days, but a lot of people don't want to necessarily blow up other people's spot. And, people are very honest and open about their thing, but they're not sure how much can they include others, in the story that were there. So I think, understand.
That's good. And, him being a smaller guy in a room full of heavyweights, you can see where you just kind of want to be a little bit of a low profile as well. Like, I get that.
I think a lot of it was the young boy aspects coming from the Japanese term where, the newer student, you basically, the way Ken had it done was the same in Japan is you just basically, you shut up and you just do what you're told, and no matter how outrageous it is. And I think that's just how it was when you were one of the younger students there.
So let's talk about your project. We met, I read a bunch of your posts online. You do a fantastic job capturing history. The Fujiwara Gumi as well as the Pancrase stuff. It's not often that I get to reference your material. One, it's not readily available, but two, you're dealing with a lot of guys that, you're using a translator with. So why don't we talk about the project that you've got going on?
Okay, so I'll start rambling. Just tell me when to shut up. So basically, this has been going on probably like 7-8 years now, because it's done very part-time between life. But I started documenting, and it's been building more and more, documenting what exactly was the Fujiwara Gumi organization from 91 to 92, and how the guys left and formed Pancrase, and how mixed martial arts sort of exploded in Japan from that aspect. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to Fujiwara Gumi, and for many years you can find almost no information on it about it online. There's a lot of key people, unfortunately, that were involved who have passed on. Plus now we're decades later, memories are fading. So I've been trying now to interview as many players as I could from all aspects, from the top to the bottom, anywhere in between, to get a comprehensive view from everybody, from all angles, so you get a good idea of what the organization was about. And then the same thing with Pancrase, and then how that developed and their early years. And like I was saying earlier, there's nonstop crossover with Lions Den, early Lions Den, and there's nonstop crossover with early UFC. So those would be like the two smaller topics that are covered in a lot of the interviews.
So, my partner, Chris Lytle, early Pancrase fighter as well. When you talk to him about other fighters that went to Japan that fought on those Pancrase cards, they kind of look at themselves as a fraternity. And like he'll mention, like in regards to title holders, that's a Pancrase guy. That's a Pancrase guy. Say if you look at the Americans that came from the Pancrase system in regards to how well they did in the UFC, they really, really excelled.
Yeah, I mean, you've got an argument for like UWFI and Sakuraba, of course, he's my favorite fighter. But as far as Pancrase, yeah, Ken Shamrock came from that lineage. Obviously, the whole Lions Den. Obviously, a number of champions that came from there. People like Maurice Smith came to the UFC, and there was basically, with his fight with Coleman, there was a paradigm shift in the style of mixed martial arts, and that started bringing forth more striking into the game. You have people like Bob Surton that came over and made a huge impact. He was heavyweight champ. Takahashi came over and was able to, by decision, defeat early Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a match. It was seen as fairly undefeatable early on. So there was a ridiculous influence that Pancrase had coming over to the States and affecting the game here at UFC.
So in regards to like the product, Pancrase compared to the UFC, it's not as exciting. But like in certain aspects, it's right. The early stuff, if you look at the early Pancrase, the level of submissions far outweighs what you're seeing in the UFC.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because of the rule difference. In Japan, they wanted to see more fluidity on the ground. They didn't want you to just hold someone and smash their head in. They like to see the transition from great striking, but then you go to the ground and they wanted to see great flowing submissions and whatnot. So you're going to see more of an aspect of grappling come out there. I think if you were to look at organizations like which might be more excited, I think obviously you're right, UFC was earth-shattering. But if you're looking at 1996 era UFC, you had Coleman, you had Fry, you had Jerry Bohlander. But I think other than that, I think Pancrase in 96, that was the top of their game. And that's kind of where my book ends, like late 96, their 3-year anniversary. I think 96, you can argue Pancrase was maybe like, if you had to pick one organization that was really, the most exciting or technically proficient, probably I might give it to Pancrase for 96 if you're going by year. But they were both vital. I think in Japan, mixed martial arts really exploded with Pancrase. Literally not even 2 months later, UFC debuts, although Pancrase already had 3 events by that time. And then, of course, the world was set afire. And we're still in that current era of mixed martial arts that really started back then.
I agree. So when do you see your book being released?
It's probably a solid year and a half. It's 2 volumes. And It's probably going to be, each volume is probably the size, God help me, as a college textbook. I've got something like 25 interviews now. Some of them are 30,000 words. It's just a matter, it's just the sheer volume, doing it as time allows. And I'm not going to put them out half-assed. It's going to be done correct.
Right.
And I'm real meticulous about it. So I have, I'm trying to wrap up, people like Noah, and there's other people that like, it's almost like an addiction. Oh, there's an interview I can grab. I got to get one more. But I think I have enough. I think it's like, how many barrels of gold do I need to bring up to you and dump in front of you? There's enough information. So it's a matter of doing the editing, transcribing, making it uniform, and then all of the essays that are going to be in front of both books that I've got to work on still. So what I did, a lot of this information is out there though, because what I did to gather information was I had started putting the interviews out. So there's about a dozen of them available online. And I did that so people knew what the interviews were about, how intricate they were. And so that was to gather other fighters, to get their interviews. So because they knew, okay, maybe he's legit. We see what kind of work he does. I've got maybe a dozen or so that I didn't release that are ready. And then I've got maybe 5 more that I have to transcribe. And then it just comes down to formatting and everything else.
Yeah,
Long-winded answer, but it's going to be a little bit.
It's going to be a little bit. And you plan on releasing 2 at the same time, or?
Yeah, it's my first self-publishing venture, and I want everything uniform. I want you to be able to put them on the bookshelf together, and then the spines are going to line up equally with the same titles and everything. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm taking on too much, but I'm trying to get it all done at once. And the reason why is I'm trying to evenly divide the books between word count for the interviews, but also an even mix of Japanese guys and English speaking guys, equal number of essays in between both books in the beginning. And so I'm trying to split them up fairly evenly. And
the translation, when you involve a translator, it's so laborious time-wise.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
It is. You can't really ever get a rhythm either, which, sometimes like what we do here, catch guys going, hit them with something that they may or may not answer. And if they do, great. If not, no harm, no foul. And it's very, very difficult to do that when you're dealing with a translator.
It is, and I think, I had one gentleman that helped me. I very much appreciate his help getting the interview with Minoru Suzuki. All the other interviews were done by a gentleman. He likes to go by the name of Gino Mongeli, and he was absolutely invaluable. I send him for years now. I've been sending him a lot of the pro wrestling magazines of that era, and he's transcribing a lot of the Fujiwara Gumi fight programs, the magazines, so I could see what they're saying.
You found somebody just as bad as you. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
And so, like the Pancrase website that's in all Japanese, they have a lot of actually really good stuff on there, like very specific detail about their first tryouts in like August of '93 and who passed and whatnot. And so I've got all that translated. So it's just a mountain of information to disseminate and put in the books. But I'm trying to make it's going to be for Fujiwara Gumi. It's going to be it's going to be the most definitive work on that. It's not really bragging because there's not really much out there on Fujiwara Gumi. And then I think between Fujiwara Gumi and Pancrase, it's going to be a pretty definitive work. It's not going to cover everything humanly possible, but you're going to be very educated on what they were about with these books.
Well, and I think I don't want this to get lost, is in essence, you're looking at the WWE, and then the guys started like from their stature and status over there, come over and start like fighting MMA. Like if that would actually happen here today, we would be selling out 80,000 seat venues, kind of like what they were doing in Japan. It's like they already took established big name people and put them in MMA bouts, from pro wrestling.
There's a huge history connection with pro wrestling and mixed martial arts, and I see this current era we're in really picking up steam in the late 80s, and it's been going till today. And I think the last great era of mixed martial arts before that was probably turn of the century into the 20th, where like late 1890s to 1920s, you had a lot of challenge matches. The pro wrestling, a lot of it was real, but then they started getting works involved in it, and a lot of people eventually stopped watching. And then from the 20s to like the late 80s, you had kind of a lull in mixed martial arts in world history. So I think that was the last big era, and a lot of it was pro wrestling related. The Gracies, obviously Count Koma had a lot of experience in pro wrestling. The Gotch style that Carl was doing way before, obviously there was legit pro wrestling there. So there's a huge, it's all intertwined.
It's fantastic, which made it special. That's why, like Pride and Pancrase, that's literally what made everything special over there.
Well, it makes it a lively debate. So it adds life to it. Is it real? Is it fake? How much of each is in there? How much are we getting more into the works? How much are we going into the shoots? Even for people that are really well versed in this stuff, you can always argue and debate it. And like with Fujiwara Gumi, even at this point, I've got a good idea on a lot of the guys, but I don't know, and you'll never know. You'll never know every fight exactly that was worked or a shoot. I've got a good idea on a lot of them. Some guys, I know their career exact, but you're never going to know. It's always going to be up for debate. It's always interesting to talk about.
Excellent. William, I sincerely appreciate this. We've not met in person. I think we're going to have to, change that, but I sincerely appreciate you coming on, helping out with the interview. And, Noah, not a huge name, but certainly somebody that was a part of MMA history.
Let's say about Noah, he was actually there before the first UFC at the Lions Den, before the first Pancrase event. So he was a key player in that early era who can provide some good info firsthand on what the Den was at the very beginning.
So excellent. William, thank you so much, brother. We're going to have to do this again. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Talk to you.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.